Most companies treat 5S as a simple cleaning routine, but they are missing the strategic heartbeat of Japanese manufacturing excellence. Welcome back to the show. I am so glad you're here because today, we are going to deconstruct a myth. We are going to take a concept that I guarantee 90% of you have heard of, and probably 50% of you have rolled your eyes at. And we are going to turn it completely upside down. I'm talking about 5S. Now, pause for a second. If you work in corporate, or manufacturing, or really any organized industry, you've seen the posters. Sort, set in order, shine, standardize, sustain. You've probably sat through a generic HR training where they told you that 5S is about keeping your desk tidy and making sure the stapler is in the right place. And you probably walked away thinking, okay, great, it's a cleaning methodology. It's janitorial. It's housekeeping. If that is what you think 5S is, you are missing the secret engine behind the post-war Japanese economic miracle. Today we are doing a deep dive into the work of Hajime Suzuki. Suzuki is a heavy hitter, a JITSA expert who didn't just teach 5S from a textbook, he implemented it on the ground, in the grime of factories, to save companies from collapse. We are looking at his presentation titled, Productivity and 5S, The Secret of Success in Japan. And notice the title there. He doesn't call it, How to Clean Your Room. He calls it the Secret of Success. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's peel back the layers of this onion, because by the end of this hour, I want you to look at your workspace, your business, and maybe even your life, through a completely different lens. Let's start with the context. Suzuki opens his argument by establishing that 5S is not a standalone thing. It is the bedrock of Kaizen, continuous improvement. If you try to build a skyscraper of productivity on a foundation of chaos, the building falls down. It's that simple. But here is the first major philosophical shift that Suzuki introduces, and it's something called customer orientation. Now, usually when we say customer, we think of the person buying the product at the store. Suzuki says, no, look closer. In a workflow, the customer is the person standing next to you. It's the next process. If I am building a car part and I hand it to you to paint, you are my customer. If I hand you a defective part, or a greasy part, or I hand it to you 10 minutes late, I have failed my customer. This mindset, that the next process is the customer, is the glue that holds Japanese industry together. And 5S is the tool that ensures you don't fail that internal customer. He frames this through a model called PQCDSM. It sounds like a mouthful, but it's the holy grail of management, productivity, quality, cost, delivery, safety, and morale. Suzuki argues that you cannot improve any of these metrics if you are swimming in physical chaos. So, let's get into the meat of it. The 5SS. But we aren't going to do the dictionary definitions. We are going to do the Suzuki practical interpretation, which is a whole different beast. First up, Siri. In English, we usually call this sort. But sort is a weak word. It sounds like organizing your sock drawer. Suzuki defines Siri as an aggressive, almost military campaign against the unnecessary. And here is the kicker. He doesn't just mean removing trash. He means removing excess quantity. This is a profound distinction. Let's say you run a factory or a kitchen. You need flour to bake bread. Obviously, flour is a necessary item. But if you have 50 bags of flour cluttering up the walkway, and you only use one bag a day, 49 of those bags are, by Suzuki's definition, unnecessary. They are waste. They are obstacles. Why does this matter? Because excess inventory hides problems. It's a security blanket. If you have a mountain of spare parts, you don't care if the machine breaks down occasionally because you have spares. If you have a month's worth of inventory, you don't notice that your supplier is always 3 days late. Suzuki demands that we strip away the safety net. He suggests a brutal logical progression. Start with a 1-day supply. Then, once you master that, cut it to a half-day supply. He introduces a tool here called the red tag strategy. It's a visual management tool. You walk through the workspace with red tags. If you see something that hasn't been used in a month, or a pile of material that is just sitting there, you slap a red tag on it. It's a visual accusation. It forces a decision. Do we keep this? Do we scrap it? Do we move it? It stops the accumulation of junk that happens in every human organization. Suzuki gives a great example of a production line. In a bad factory, the line is cluttered with WIP, work in progress. Piles of half-finished stuff everywhere. In a Siri-optimized factory, you are only allowed the exact number of items needed for that hour. It changes the psychology of the worker. You aren't wading through a swamp of materials, you are flowing through a process. Once you have ruthlessly eliminated the unnecessary, you move to Seaton. Set in order. Now again, the common misconception, Seaton means making things look neat. Wrong. Suzuki says Seaton is not about neatness, it's about efficiency and speed. It is the bridge to visual control. Here is the test. If a stranger walks into your workspace, can they find the tool they need in 30 seconds? If a stranger looks at a shelf, can they immediately tell that we are low on paper? If the answer is no, you haven't done Seaton. Suzuki talks about the concept of the blind spot. In a factory, or even an office, if you have high stacks of boxes or messy corridors, you create danger zones. Seaton uses visual markers, painting the corners of hallways, marking the floor, to ensure flow. But the most powerful concept here is the min/max inventory level. Imagine a shelf with a box of bolts. You put a line on the shelf or a label that says max 10 boxes and min 2 boxes. You don't need a computer system to tell you when to reorder. You just walk by. You see 2 boxes. You know it's time to order. It offloads the cognitive burden from the brain to the environment. He applies this to everything. Tools shouldn't just be in a drawer, they should be on a shadow board, arranged by frequency of use. If you use a screwdriver every 5 minutes, it should be within arm's reach. If you use it once a week, it can be 10 feet away. It's about the economy of motion. And interestingly, Suzuki says this applies to information, too. How many of us have digital clutter? Files named final_draft_v2_real_final. Seaton demands that information flow is just as standardized as physical flow. If a file is missing, or a folder is empty, it should be visually obvious that something is wrong. This brings us to a really cool specific example from the summary regarding documents. In a high-level Seaton office, when you take a physical file off the shelf, you don't just leave a hole. You insert a placeholder card with your name on it. Why? Because transparency reduces the search time. We aren't running around asking, who has the Anderson file? We look at the shelf, see the card, and we know. It creates accountability without a single word being spoken. So, we've sorted Siri, and we've set in order Seaton. Now we arrive at the third S, and this is where Suzuki really starts to separate the amateurs from the pros. Saizo. Usually translated as shine, or clean. If you tell a highly paid engineer to grab a broom and sweep the floor, they will look at you like you're crazy. I'm not a janitor, they'll say. And if Saizo was just about cleaning, they'd be right. But Suzuki flips the script. He says Saizo is inspection. This is a massive paradigm shift. When you are wiping down a machine, you aren't just removing dust. You are touching the surface. You are feeling for loose bolts. You are looking for oil leaks. You are listening to the hum of the motor. You are using the act of cleaning as a method of detecting abnormalities before they become catastrophes. He asks these rhetorical questions. Is sweeping enough? Is wiping with a cloth enough? The answer is no. The method of cleaning has to match the technical need. He talks about ultrasonic cleaning for delicate parts. It's technical, not janitorial. Let me give you the most brilliant, low-tech example from the presentation. It's the white paint method. Imagine a bolt on a machine. You tighten it perfectly. Then, you take a paint marker and draw a white line across the head of the bolt and onto the machine's surface. It takes 2 seconds. Now, fast forward 2 weeks. The machine is vibrating. Usually, you wouldn't know a bolt has loosened until it falls out and the machine explodes. But because of that white line, the operator, who is doing their daily, cleaning, looks at the bolt. If the line on the bolt no longer matches the line on the surface, they know instantly, visually, that the bolt has turned. They can tighten it before a breakdown occurs. That is Saizo. It is self-maintenance. Suzuki suggests that you shouldn't try to do this everywhere at once. He recommends picking a model machine. If you have a factory with 400 weaving looms, don't try to clean them all on day 1. Pick one. Make it perfect. Learn the failure points. Mark the bolts. Create a standard. Then roll it out. This leads to data-driven maintenance. He describes a yarn beater machine with 480 parts. He says you need to track which parts get dirty and which parts fail. Over time, you stop just cleaning, and you start predicting. This moves you toward TPM, total productive maintenance. You are using the data from the cleaning process to engineer a better machine. And that engineered improvement leads us directly into the 4th S, Saiketsu. Standardize. Or, as Suzuki prefers, sanitize/prevention. This is the most misunderstood of the 5. Most people think Saiketsu means keep doing the first 3. Suzuki says, no, that's too passive. Saiketsu is about prevention. If Saizo is cleaning up the oil leak, Saiketsu is figuring out why it leaked and changing the design so it never leaks again. It is moving from cleaning dirt to preventing dirt. He takes us into the world of the microscopic here. He talks about invisible dirt. In industries like integrated circuit manufacturing or hospitals, a speck of dust you can't even see can destroy a product or kill a patient. He gives a case study of a machine that was generating a lot of dust and noise. The Saizo approach would be to sweep up the dust every hour. The Saiketsu approach, the Kaizen approach, was to re-engineer the machine. They reduced the dust output from 394 grams a day to 54 grams. They reduced the noise. Why does this matter? Because cleaning costs money. It costs labor. If you can prevent the mess, you save that labor. Suzuki uses the example of super pure water in high-tech industries. They don't just wash things, they use water so pure, produced via electrolysis, that it is chemically hungry for dirt. It is a level of hygiene that goes beyond human capability. So, Saiketsu is the engineering of a defect-free environment. It is the refusal to accept that getting dirty is a natural part of work. Now we have arrived at the final S. The hardest one. The one that causes most implementations to fail. Shitsuke. Sustain. Discipline. Suzuki breaks down the Japanese character for Shitsuke. It is a combination of the symbol for body and the symbol for beautiful. A beautiful body. He's not talking about the gym. He's talking about the body of the worker and the organization. It represents the self-discipline to maintain this beautiful state we have created. It is the transition from following rules because the boss is watching to following rules because that is who we are. Suzuki makes a fascinating sociological point here. He notes that in many developing industrial economies, workers are coming from rural backgrounds. They are used to working in fields, where time is flexible, where nature dictates the schedule, where precision isn't measured in millimeters. When you bring that mindset into a modern factory, it clashes. You cannot run a precision assembly line with a rural mindset. Shitsuke is the tool for that cultural transformation. It teaches the basics, arriving 10 minutes early, wearing the safety gear correctly every single time, not chatting on the phone while operating a lathe. He argues, and this is controversial but practical, that you should actually start with shitsuke. Before you even teach sorting, you have to establish the discipline of the culture. Let's look at the case study of the Singapore hearing aid factory. This is a story about a manager named Mr. Tan. He took over a factory that had high technical skills but a terrible attitude. The place was a mess, people were lazy, morale was low. Mr. Tan did something radical. When they moved the factory to a new location, he used the move as a hard reset. He implemented shitsuke with an iron fist. He removed the desk drawers. Think about that. No drawers. Why? To stop people from hoarding personal items and snacks. He removed the armrests from the chairs. Why? To stop people from lounging and leaning back. He separated the work space from the private space entirely. You want to drink a Coke? Go to the break room. You want to work? Be at your station. It sounds harsh. It sounds draconian. But the result was a complete shift in focus. By removing the distractions and enforcing a visual standard, the workers shifted from a casual mindset to a professional one. They used photo-based layout maps so everyone knew exactly where every tool belonged. The result wasn't just a cleaner factory. It was a factory that survived. And that brings us to the grand conclusion. Why do we do all of this? Why do we red tag the inventory? Why do we paint lines on bolts? Why do we take away the armrests? It comes back to the formula Suzuki presents: production equals productivity x working time. 5S attacks the variables in that equation. By doing Siri, sort, and set in order, you reduce the search time. You reduce the time spent moving things around. You rationalize the layout. This increases the productivity variable. By doing Saizo, inspection, and Saiketsu, prevention, you stop machines from breaking down. You reduce the downtime. This maximizes the effective working time. It all feeds into the Big Six: productivity, quality, cost, delivery, safety, and morale. Suzuki's final argument is that 5S is not about housekeeping. It is about creating a state of best conditions. It is about respect. Respect for the tools, respect for the product, respect for the customer, and ultimately, respect for oneself. When you walk into a factory, or an office, or a studio that has truly implemented these ideas, you feel it. It's quiet. It's calm. There is a hum of efficiency. Nobody is running. Nobody is shouting. Things are exactly where they should be. Problems are visible instantly, so they are solved instantly. That is the secret of Japanese success that Hajime Suzuki was trying to teach. It's not that they clean better than we do. It's that they view the physical environment as a direct extension of their strategy. So, here is my challenge to you today. Look at your workspace. Look at your digital desktop. Look at your kitchen. Identify one thing that is excess quantity, something you haven't used in a month. Red tag it. Get rid of it. Identify one blind spot, or one frustration, something you lose constantly. Apply Seton. Create a home for it. Label it. And next time you clean something, don't just wipe it. Inspect it. Look for the crack. Look for the leak. Transform the act of maintenance into an act of improvement. That is the essence of Kaizen. That is the power of 5S. Thank you for listening. This has been a deep dive into the mind of Hajime Suzuki. Go out there, sort, straighten, shine, standardize, and sustain. I'll see you in the next episode.